Yes, I will be creating one and then we will definitely do it for sure.
Great. Good for you.
Lovely.
Monica
So,
James, thank you. Thank you very much for making this happen on a Saturday. Now, basically, every day, every day has become a
We
tech
have
news
something to
day.
look forward to.
Yay!
When do I play the wedding music?
Yeah, Indian music.
You and
Congratulations,
this
Indian
guys.
wedding
wedding
music,
music.
Heyman, what do you
Congratulations on
want?
the
A
debut.
No, it's like a combining of
wedding?
two great families here.
Oh,
Combining
hi,
is
Heyman.
like,
I'm sitting next to you.
Oh,
I'm
Suzanne.
sitting next
Suzanne
to.
is jealous now.
No, I'm next door to one of my house. I was going to say household husbands, but I need to say clubhouse husbands. I'm happy now.
We could
I'm
do a
good.
Guys,
Nagila Hava if you want.
look at the number of party hats in the audience.
Ooh, look at all those party people.
it's Friday night, right? That's why they get them. No? Meh.
Nah, nah,
Why are
nah.
Monica and James quiet? Is it a meditation room right now?
no, because him and I was thinking, I've never had a fintech and payments room start off, even any panel start off with this kind of fun. I'm thinking this is probably the South Asian flavor, and obviously our coffee is taking good effect here.
Oh, good, good. I could
So
play some A.R. Rahman
wait,
music or something
wait,
if you want.
wasn't this the room that, no, Cheryl, what was your room last weekend where we were setting people up and stuff? A
No, no,
lot of
this is
fun.
definitely not
No,
that.
it's just a random
Darn it.
pop-up room for some experimental thing. But I must say, Suzanne, you have if it's not for you, I'll probably have closed it in 30 minutes.
We had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, we
Here,
did, we did.
I
Thanks
can
to
make I
you.
can make anything interesting. I will help you, Monica, and your fintech and payments news will be like out of this freaking world. Not
Hey,
Hey,
just
by the
within
way,
the
hey,
world, but
listen,
out of the
listen.
world.
Any party hat out there? Welcome to Clubhouse. Absolutely welcome to Clubhouse.
And
This is like one, and you are so fortunate, frankly, because you've come upon one of the most informed and fun communities that you'll find on Clubhouse. And I'm not biased. I'm absolutely like saying that from my heart. So yeah, and so do follow. And Monica is setting up for the first time with the partnership with the tech news, fintech and payments news around the world. And this news around the world that Monica and James are going to drive as a dialogue is going to be a treat for all of you because she will, I'll let her expose the whole game for you. And so this is going to be fun. Everyone stay here. I know we're just banting and getting to know each other, but if you've just popped in, just stay in. Give it 5 minutes, give it 10 minutes. Just stay in. You'll find this is amazing.
Oh,
Thank you very
Cal,
much.
you're very kind.
Thanks,
You're very
Carl.
kind, Cal. Good day, everybody. This is James in the Red. Sorry, I was a bit quiet, but we've just been getting set up. We are now live, also on Twitter Spaces, YouTube, and also on Facebook as well. So, whatever your preferred social media stream, you will find us. Fantastic to be doing this collaboration with the Tech News Around the World Club, and really excited for what I hope will be a super powerful series every Saturday, 7 a.m. UK time or whatever your time zone. And really looking forward to getting started. Monica, I know we've got a lot on the plate to get through in terms of news cycles. Should we kick it off?
Absolutely. Just one quick reminder for everybody who's joining in. Everybody is welcome to join us, but the format of the show is going to be very, very simple. We will walk you through a set of headlines. We're more than happy to hear from you, get your feedback on the headline or your own perspective as well. The only request that we have is that this is a shared mic, so we need to keep it very polite, and of course, please don't be rude to anyone else when you come onto the stage, and keep it concise. Also, a little bit of housekeeping before we start. So, Tech News, which is run by Tyler and Cal, have given us this opportunity to do this room under their club this week. Next week, at the same time, you will have the same room under Fintech and Payments Club. And James is the founder of and a couple of other folks that you're finding here are admins on the club who run the charter across the world. We are interested in making sure that fintech and payments becomes part of your daily, your Saturday routine. So we are more than happy if you had any suggestions, please do drop them our way. Also, we are on socials, which are again available on our profile. So please take the time to click on our profiles and our bios to check us out. We would love if you would give the clubs a follow, and as well as, of course, everybody else in the audience who is joining and providing some feedback on stage, so that this audience continues to grow and we also grow along with it. Now I'm going to quickly, and so by the way, I didn't have the chance to introduce my great moderators here, but probably a 10-second introduction for starting with you, James, and then we'll start off after we've done the round of introductions with you, Tyler, Cal, and myself, and then we'll go with our dive right into the headlines.
Yeah, let's
Over
get
to you,
going.
James.
Sounds good. Okay, so yeah, hi everyone. James. I work at MasterCard. I'm the SVP for new payment platforms. I work in everything but card at MasterCard. So that includes account-to-account payments between banks. It includes blockchain and digital ledger technologies, and all the things that you wouldn't think MasterCard did. That's the team I work in. Delighted to be with everyone here today. Obviously, anything I share will be my personal perspective and not those of my employer. Compliance over. Tyler, over to you.
Thanks, James. I help cities grow their startup ecosystems, most notably for the past 8 years with Stockholm, and where I also do the large monthly tech event and the big annual technology festival, which is the largest in the region. And then here in Clubhouse doing the Tech News Club with Cal and everyone on stage here twice a day, which you can see by clicking on the title of this room, and you'll see the Tech News Club. And if you're new to Clubhouse, as Cal said, you got very lucky right from the start. But it's a lot of fun, and excited to be a part of this today. So over to Cal.
Hi, I'm Cal Patel. Listen, I mostly try to make more money for myself and other people. But my passion is my children. So I hang out with my children quite a lot. They're growing up now, so I'm getting out there to do more stuff back in the world. You can check my bio, no more needed on that. But I have to say, I've found some amazing friends here, and everyone on stage here are just amazing people. And we're going to have a fun discussion. So thank you so much. We'll just get into it now.
Thank you so much. And last but not the least, it's me. I'm Monica D'Souza. I'm a fintech and payments professional and also a product management exec. I lead a team of product managers trying to design the next stage of digital financial solutions. And it's my privilege and pleasure to actually not only bring this to you, but also say a big thanks to both James, who gave me the opportunity when I started off in Clubhouse, and to Tyler and Cal, who've always been more than happy to bring new people onto the stage and give them the audience that is required. So without further ado, let's dive right in. And it's starting off with a headline that I know James will have a lot to say about, which is that Plaid and Square partner on easier online ACH payments, thereby making ACH opportunities available to merchants in the US. So, James, do you want to take that on?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, about time. So I still find it incredible as a Brit that every time I go to the USA, I still have colleagues that talk about checkbooks and other insane kind of ways to pay that should be in the dustbin from like 40, 50 years ago at least. But the idea that someone is thinking carefully about delivering a experience at the point of sale, so kind of like a person to merchant transaction, you're in a store, you want to pay, and the idea of actually being able to link up your bank account and actually be able to pay by pushing money from your bank account to the merchant's bank account rather than having to use a piece of plastic or a checkbook or something insane. It makes a whole lot of sense to me, and all that really matters now from my mind is if you can get used to the idea of Venmo and Zelle, you just now need to get the idea that effectively you're doing the same, but at a merchant location, whether that be online or in a physical store. And what really I think will drive this is the ACH in the USA being upgraded to being real time. That's been an ongoing project for some time with the clearinghouse, who have real time payments, RTP, but also now the Fed are getting in on the act as well and saying they want to deliver a thing called Fed Now, which would also be a real-time payments capability. So yeah, super excited to see this progress. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more in the ecosystem of players tying up like this news item. And I think it's going to be a festival of fintech and partnerships to really get the ecosystem moving in the USA.
James, I wanted to just double click on this Plaid piece, because Plaid seems to have moved on to a different strategy now, especially after their acquisition didn't go through, whereby they have been making some really huge headlines over the last couple of weeks. And this happens to be another one, because users are scared to actually provide their own bank credentials. But by offering this extended layer and by tying up with such a big payments provider in the US, do you finally think that real-time payments in the US will take off?
I think there's a lot to go. I think it will. Right. I think we keep on saying, this is the year for real-time payments in the USA. This is the year. This is the year. I think I've said it 3 years in a row. It's super frustrating because you only have to look to places like Thailand, where Tyler is right now, or the UK. It's had faster payments for 13 years, or India, where you are, Monica, where UPI has been growing so fast. Just kind of look at the USA and scratch your head and go, why? Why is it taking one of the largest economies in the world 5 years to really make progress with real-time payments? And I think it's got a lot down to the US banking system being so fragmented, right? There's like 3,000 plus banks across the country, all these individual savings and loans. And it's banal, right? We just need to solve for it. And it seems that there's some real challenges to making it happen, but I see progress. I think this could be the year. I'm going to say it. This could be the year. It's one of our top trends for the year as we started out in January. Honestly, if the US doesn't get its act together, the Fed, I think, is just going to force it to do it. So I think it's in the gift of the banking industry to do it. Otherwise, their regulator will make them.
James, can I ask you, please, if you could just for a minute or two elaborate on what new services this allows to have the account-to-account transfer rather than going through other modes of payments?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for the question. Briefly, if you can move your money from your value account, it doesn't really matter where it is. It could be a mobile money account. If you're somewhere around the world, it could be your bank account. And the ability to basically pay someone instantly, i.e. transfer money from your account to theirs in milliseconds, and it be instantly cleared and available funds. So effectively, it says, is equivalent to me giving you a $100 bill. If I put $100 through the real-time system, it's now in your hands, it's yours to spend, do what you want with it. And it's irrevocable, right? It can't be reversed. And what that does is it takes out cost, it takes out time, it takes out risk. And as a result, speed is often what people focus on. Real-time payments, it's in the name. But in most cases, it's also an upgrade of the payment system to allow you to do lots of other things as well. And it allows you to carry a lot more data alongside the message. It uses a new format, which is basically infinitely extensible. So you can put all kinds of valuable information alongside the payment. It could be, the line items of what you bought at the till. So instead of you can have a digital receipt, instead of just it being the amount and the merchant and the time, it could be all the basket contents, the individual prices, discount codes, tax, you name it. It could all be in there, and anything else you might think about that would be useful to carry alongside with a payment message. So it's a much richer data flow that enables information to be shared between your account at your bank with someone else's account at another bank. And the other cool thing that you can do is you can do non-payment messages through that network. So, for example, you can submit a request for information or a request for payment. So if I owe you, Sarah, say £100 for dinner last night, you can basically through your banking app say, hey, James, you owe me £100. It will come through as a message on my phone. I can just click approve. The money is automatically sent to you. I don't need to know your bank details. You don't need to know mine. And that's the other cool thing that most of these systems now support. They support a thing called proxy, which effectively says, I just need to know your phone number or your email address or something else that I might already have stored away on my phone. I don't need to know all your bank routing numbers and everything that goes with. And that just makes it a far, far more powerful system because we're not dealing with clunky, 25-digit numbers and letters and all that nonsense that we're used to, and potentially in international payments and sometimes in domestic payments too. So it's a big, big enabler, and I think we'll see a ton of new innovation on the back of it. Lots of companies will harness that. Particularly the value, for me, will be in the business-to-business space, because there you can see how rich data could really enable a world to move forward away from manual, cumbersome processes and start to embrace all the things that we're starting to see in digital ledger technology, like smart contracts, straight-through processing, and loads of cool stuff like that. So, yeah, super exciting time. The US is behind, I'll be blunt, as it has been on the rollout of, chips and cards and and contactless technology and things like that. But we'll get there. It's just a tough market because of the fragmentation.
Super, thank
James,
you.
it was Heyman from Toronto. I'm just wondering, with the credit scoring, like, could this new information that you're saying, your added information in each of these transactions, be able to be converted to real-time credit scores?
Yeah, it certainly can. And I think there's a number of innovations there that should improve credit scores for all of us. So credit scores typically processed by a credit bureau under the principles of reciprocity. So in effect, if I'm a bank, I only get to know your credit score if I promise that for every month thereafter that you hold an account with me, I send information about the performance of your account back to the credit bureau. And so that other institutions, if you go to them and say, hey, I want credit, there's a profile about your past performance with institution A, even if you apply with institution B. And they were kind of built in the 70s and the 80s. And at that time, the technology was such that you could only submit information monthly because it was just so cumbersome. And the credit bureaus haven't really moved on that much. What we have, obviously, is the ability to do internet connectivity, real-time information sharing. And I think, honestly, the bureaus are going to get right kicking unless they up their game, because a bunch of fintechs will start to do this using access to real-time information, real-time payments, open banking, etc. And they'll be able to pull together a much more accurate and fresh view of your current performance and your financial standing. So yeah, I think this is going to be another enabler, because effectively what's going to create is another massive data asset at the banks.
Right.
That will be far more accurate and far more up to date.
And especially for the unbanked too, right? So at least for the B2C market.
Yeah, we should end up in a space where, through open banking connections, through people like Plaid or Play, depending on where you are in the world, and if you have access to open banking, if you have the ability to reach in with my permission to get my data from my banks and then pull that all together, you can very quickly assemble a credit score. And what's cool about that is if you've moved countries, often the domestic credit bureaus have no idea who you are, what your past performance has been, anything like that. So what's cool about this is if you've moved, let's say you recently moved from the States to the UK credit bureaus will go, who on earth is Heyman, right? We don't know anything about him. He can't have credit. Whereas if Heyman can go, actually, here's all my credit history with the Royal Bank of Canada or Wells Fargo,
How did you
whatever
know
it might
that?
be, go get it. Right? Go get that data, right? And, there's 30 years of history there. If they let you pull it all out, let me have it. Tell me what my real credit score is. And bad luck, the UK, you don't know this already, but you will soon because Heyman's in town.
But James, the data, will the data belong to Play? Because what you described just now in answering Heyman's question sounds more like an account aggregator rather than just the pipe that allows bank-to-bank transfer, which in any case only concerns those who already have a bank account. So how do we solve for, first, who does the data belong to? And second, to Heyman's point, for those who do not yet have a bank account, has Pled the ability to plug into other payment systems such as mobile wallet, which is more prevalent in emerging markets?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sarah. So the battlegrounds for data are going to just to continue to be drawn and fought over. I have personally a view that it's my data at these institutions held, and that's largely held up by UK law, right? And to some degree, I think it extends across Europe, but it is different depending on which jurisdiction you're based in. But what should be the case, in my personal opinion, and it will differ by market, is that I see institutions as custodians of my data. And if I want my data, I can ask them for it. And open banking is just a way that I can create a more universal service that sits between me and many institutions that can aggregate it for me. But it's still my data. And if I want to ask the third party for it, they'll have to give it to me too. But the real question then becomes, what do those institutions holding my data, whether it be the banks or it be the open banking third parties that sit in the middle, what are they going to do with my data? How is that going to be measured and managed and controlled? Is it going to be kept secure? What happens if they leak it? All those kinds of challenges are really an extension of the same challenges that financial institutions face today. I'm not sure a great deal is going to change there until some perhaps bigger and bolder players enter the space to say, we will be custodians of the data. We are a trusted brand that you believe in, and therefore people get more comfortable having their data held in other places that weren't banks.
You know,
And
security, James, security bothers me, right? Obviously, as a consumer, right? So I'm going to come at it I have a real consumer lens on things quite often, right? Just because it's just an easier one to have when you don't understand like the details of, the experts know the details. So from a consumer perspective, right, there's some propositions that are just no-brainers. And if behind the scenes, there are some, issues about who owns my data, etc., I'll kind of forego some things. Like, for example, this exact use case, well, not use this experience of moving between countries and being able to take your credit record. It is a big problem. I bet you if you do a poll later on, so many people have faced that problem, right? It's not just between the UK and the US. It probably gets harder and harder with, between countries that don't connect, through governments and through policy discussions and through protocols, etc. But between the US and the UK, which is what I faced, like going to the US first time years ago, I was like nobody. Like, I mean, literally, it did not matter how much you had in your UK bank account, whether you've paid your bills in the UK. None of it matters. So some of these propositions, as soon as you get from a consumer, and people see, like, it's advertised as a consumer. It's not advertised. It's like marketed. This is your proposition, right? Now, there are some banks, like, for example, that are, frankly, I apologize to anyone out there if I insult, specific banks. It's not the individuals in the banks, it's just the propositions behind it. So I want to just say that. But HSBC, right? They make such a huge deal about being this global bank, but behind the scenes, they rip me off. But at the same time, they have these little propositions in this really archaic system, right, that help you move between countries, and it just makes it slightly easier, right? So I could open a bank account in the US with HSBC, but none of the US banks would touch me when I first went there, right? Just because I had no credit record. So once I open one account, I can open the others. So my curiosity is how where do the consumers come in here? This is where I think the big consumer companies have a chance to get in the game, right? Like the ones that consumers trust, right? And I'm talking about people you might not even think are in the financial services industry, right? Amazon, we're going to say this again, but there are people who are like literally, I understand. I get a good consumer experience with this lot of people, and behind the scenes, they can create all the partnerships that they need. So I was just curious with the rest of the crowd if that's that's a lens that anyone has. But I love this idea of being able to move between countries and take your credit record with you. I think that's
Cal, just a point before James explained the theory, but there are companies now that the issue you face is starting to change as credit bureaus realize that indeed this is an issue, and a population usually that travels for good reason and have more than higher than middle income. And so you might have heard of a company called Nova Credit that has partnered with American Express amongst others, but that allows to transport your credit history between Australia, Canada, India, Mexico, and the UK.
Oh, that's helpful. Yeah.
I'll send you some stuff on that.
So, folks, this is an excellent segue into actually not only plugging in, but also saying that we will definitely be talking about this particular development in our incoming series, which has been ongoing for quite some time. We have Sophie, who is on the stage right now. She's been running a series on embedded fintech, which actually talks about exactly this piece about how fintech becomes a part of our everyday lives, and many companies apart from mainstream banks are actually providing banking services. So it would be great if you would look at the calendar for Fintech and Payments Club and also join in there. We will definitely do a little bit of a 101 on this particular topic, just to make sure that everybody understands, and obviously putting on the consumer lens as well. But it's time to move on to the next headline, because we have many to go through today. So therefore, I'm not going to ask for anybody in the audience to come up and comment on this one, but definitely for the next couple. So the next one is an interesting one, but something that we've heard before, which is that the Fed Chair Powell opens up a digital dollar debate. And in a short address, the Fed Chair has said that the central bank has been investigating CBDCs for several years, focusing on whether and how a digital dollar could improve an already safe, effective, dynamic and efficient US domestic payment system. Powell stresses that it is important that any potential CBDC would serve as a complement to and not a replacement of cash and private sector forms of payment and the dollar. Now, this comes as an interesting headline because we have exactly the same headline from Israel as well, where the Israeli shekel, the digital form of that, is also being considered. So, I wanted to throw this open to anybody on the stage, including the moderators who wanted to chime in.
Yeah, happy to just say a few words on this because central bank digital currencies is something that I think a kind of a natural progression of the fact that we've got not only certain state actors around the world pushing heavily into central bank digital currencies, so it's no surprise to me that the US Federal Reserve is going to have to act. Otherwise, I think they risk not being the kind of world de facto trade currency if China continues to push the digital yuan and things like that. Plus, you've also got a number of massive US tech giants also trying to establish their own stable coins. So no great surprise that the CBDC is having to be seen to be doing something. The real challenge is actually getting something done. And a whole bunch of white papers have been coming out from central banks. Very few are actually making it happen. We've got some examples in like the Bahamas, obviously China. Sweden has been trialing the e-krona, which I'm sure Tyler's probably got a handle on as well.
Yeah, very slow progress on that one.
We had Daniel, one of the economists from the Riksbank, the People's Bank of Sweden, on the show a few weeks back, and he was talking about the kind of first pilot and what they've learned, what they're looking to learn next. It does seem that they're central banks, right? They're always going to be conservative. They're not going to be the first in innovation. But it's interesting to see which ones are pushing forward and which ones are kind of watching and learning, and then I'm hopefully ready to pounce.
The Swedes just have a very strongly held process of consensus and redundant meetings about meetings, and nothing moves forward until everyone's in complete alignment and in what they call consensus. And so that's just the Swedish process. It has its strengths and benefits, but one of the notable characteristics is that it moves a bit slower. But it does create. They do they do things right. But it takes. They're thinking, de-risking and thinking long term, and so they're taking a more considered approach, I guess you could say.
Tyler, I think
Americans are doing the same, right?
we need to schedule a meeting to talk about the meetings because I'm not fully aligned with you so
Bro,
far.
bro, you wouldn't last 5 minutes in Stockholm, man.
By the way, the Moroccans are also working on a crypto, possibly, right, for the whole of Africa. At least African countries are sort of looking towards the Moroccan crypto if they do go ahead.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff coming in Africa, I have to say. So Kamel Cadet, who's the CEO of MTech ex-IBM, is driving pretty hard to look at the potential for central bank digital currencies in Africa. So particularly, you've got kind of this amazing thing called the money flower that the Bank of International Settlements put out in their first white paper about CBDCs, which is like this really complex like Venn diagram of all the different ways that you can use digital currency. And there's kind of two at the core, which is retail central bank digital currency, the kind of thing that you and I will be able to use for spending every day, and wholesale central bank digital currency, which is largely a way to help improve a new pool of liquidity between banks and the central bank. And there's some very cool applications of the latter, which is perhaps geekier than this audience probably wants to go into. But I think the African opportunities are massive because there is an ability to leapfrog existing payment systems and go straight to this in a way that they've gone straight to mobile money. And that's super exciting in my mind.
That's actually where the field we are operating in. So we have a partnership with an organization called Smart Africa. That's 31 African nations which are collaborating in an organization to create basically a single digital market in Africa. It is headquartered in Kigali in Rwanda. And we actually run a fund with them, which is an early stage tech fund. But I'm saying that because the conversation we're having is directly with the ICT ministers of these 31 countries. And the countries which are mostly pushing for that are actually the ones which have the highest burden from the colonial legacy of the West African Central Bank, which is tagged to the euro today. It was the French franc originally, because again, this is all controlled actually, if you want, by the EU or the French government, still into the West African Central Bank. And that's why these nations have actually are pushing for digital currencies and also cryptocurrencies themselves, national ones, like Togo, for example, is the push doing there, in order to get rid of those chains and have a certain sovereignty and a possibility to flexibility to do. And I fully agree. We see a lot of companies and technologies we've been actually investing in. We've been investing in financial inclusion initially, but in the recent years, of course, very much into fintech space, not only because of mobile money, but really into also consumer credit scores, as you were saying before. Previously, actually, Cal said, that's a part where we invest in companies providing microfinance or microloans to households which are all digitally connected through solar home units, and they create their credit rating score. You have actually a company called Bbox, which is UK based in Chiswick. They operate massively in 500,000 households right now in Africa, and the individual households create a credit score and rating. But the interesting part is that governments actually are providing now subsidies to connect these households, and the households create a credit rating. And now the push is really into, as you just previously said, into digital currencies and specifically cryptocurrencies also they're looking at in order to get rid of those chains.
So I just wanted to say one thing, which is that while we are focusing a lot on the CBDC angle, I think China has been pushing far ahead with regards to not only pilots, but actually making the currency available to a specified set of users in China. And they've been partnering both on the merchants as well as with, of course, the People's Bank of China to make this happen. While a lot of news is coming out from there, raising both privacy as well as consumer concerns around the use of CBDC as well as what value it offers in our life, what we really not hearing and not seeing as well, apart from tinkering and news information flowing in directly in terms of PR announcements from central regulators all across the world, including US, Israel, Kazakhstan, Turkey, India, is the fact that why will governments want to do this, and what does it really help them hedge against. So everybody is talking about the rise of the Chinese currency and of course the geopolitical risks that may lead to with the US dollar becoming weaker, which is one of the main concerns which has been cited. But I am looking to try and find out what are the governments looking at in terms of the benefits of the currency. By the way, we also have LS on stage. LS, did I get your name right? But from your profile, I can see that you would like to chime in on this particular topic that we are speaking about right now.
Yeah, Monica, I just came on, but I know Tyler and Cal quite well. I'm usually in tech news, and so I just popped in when I saw tech news. But I'll wait for a bit because I didn't know if you guys went through our normal headlines and we comment on those particular headlines. And I'm assuming we're talking about the U.S. coming out with their own digital currency in China. But I literally just popped on the room, so I'll wait a few minutes.
Yeah, hey, LS and Monica, I'll
Hey,
have a
Dave.
shot at the benefits, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Please go
Yes.
ahead.
So, like, if we think about this in like simple words, central bank digital currency, crypto or the digital asset called Bitcoin being decentralized. I think there's, just to state the blindingly obvious, there's definitely a frame here called central banks want to, depending on which way you look at it, maintain or make sure that the future is in their hands and not in the hands of those naughty Bitcoiners. So the sub question that I had was actually related to Cal's interesting point on HSBC, because if I was running HSBC today, I'd be thinking really carefully about the money that I'd be pumping into the transformation, because like just to do what Cal was talking about, to do some intelligent like data stuff so that the porting between countries is right, I'll just like throw down a marker 500 million to do one of those bits. The so what is like, as a team, particularly interested in you and James, Monica, like as a team, do we think that there's a link here between the distributed ledger technology being not just an advantage for the banks in the currency frame, but also in the actual core transformation frame, i.e. the root cause of the sins of HSBC being like big, heavy, expensive legacy. I'd really love the team's thoughts on that, but if it's off topic, I'll back down.
Dave, would it be okay if we can take this question in a fintech and payments room that
Yeah,
James is
sure,
running tomorrow on Sunday Surgery?
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's do that. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead with the next headline since this has come up a couple of times. Cal, this will be something that will definitely arouse interest. HSBC will take on its fintech rivals with a multi-currency digital wallet. So it is taking the fight to the fintechs like Wise with the launch of a multi-currency digital wallet that enables businesses to make international payments simply and securely. They are launching this wallet in the US, UK and Singapore. With payment capabilities in euros, UK pound sterling, Hong Kong dollars, Canadian dollars,
Okay.
etc.
So what will happen is like 5 people will try and call me, right? 5 different random people who don't talk to each other, right? Will try and call me to sell me this because sorry, their customer experience like from the back end is like because they're just so fragmented. But yeah, it sounds like a potentially good thing. Yeah, why not? Because then I've got this one place. But how would it be different? My question, like for the people who understand the back end of this, and just from a consumer perspective. So I've got bank accounts in 3 different currencies, right, with them right now. How would this be different, right, from a consumer's perspective?
Yeah, so I think, Cal, one of the things that Wise has done well, right, or TransferWise as it used to be, Revolut and others,
Oh, I
you've
love
basically got,
TransferWise. Yeah, they're much
yeah,
better.
so, well, there you go, right? So I think that's what it's about. I think it's about a couple of things. HSBC are, one of the world's largest global banks. They should have access to better FX rates than anybody else, given the amount of volume they do, right? So they should have a rude price advantage that others cannot compete with. But what they have a problem with is they've got a terrible user experience that sits in front of that. And they probably have some fairly horrendous fees as well, which make it unattractive. So I think what they realized is, hang on a second, why are we letting some fintechs eat our lunch here? We should have an advantage. We've got customers. We've got better pricing. The only thing that we're really not doing well is a good experience. So it looks to me like this is an effort by them to effectively deliver a far better digital experience so that they don't bleed customers and businesses to fintechs, and it's kind of them taking the fight back. And so I would expect, Cal, from your perspective, you'll end up with maybe a sidecar app, which is an HSBC app that makes the functionality a lot easier and is less secure because it only does certain things, but it delivers a much better
Yeah,
digital experience.
and they
Or
almost have to
maybe,
start from scratch, right? They have to start.
yeah, well, that's it. And it's a little bit like, was it an Nespresso, I think, with Nestle, right? They basically said there's no way we're going to be able to build something like this. It totally goes against our business model and does weird things in our existing business. So why don't we give some people a bunch of money and tell them to go build it across the street away from us?
But
And I think that's really the best way to do digital innovation of your bank, because otherwise you just get mired in all the bureaucracy and you can't really move fast and break things the way that your rivals can.
But the question here, James, for you, maybe that's a little bit also a question like you would have Twitter now, whatever, compete with Clubhouse, So my question is actually, I'm a regular Revolut user, and I live in Switzerland, and for me, Revolut has 2 main advantages. One is that cost of transferring money between one currency into the other, of all euro around here, except in Switzerland, still the Swiss franc, and that will be that way. So for me to use my Swiss, Credit Suisse credit card to go on the French side to buy something is just horrendously expensive by doing it what the bank charges me. So basically now I transfer the money over in Revolut in a much, much cheaper way and fair back and forth into whatever currency. I also use, by the way, the crypto wallets of Revolut, not for the big amounts, but really for the regular ones, to flip-flop and to pay something. And it works extremely good and seamless. My question is, pricing is one of the advantages. And the second advantage was then it's not just 2 or 3 currencies. So, for example, my family, I have a big family in Mexico. I can transfer things over in Mexican pesos, have no problems. So my question is, do you think that they can really compete? Because actually, they need to make money and they need to pay their huge infrastructure, which probably a fintech like Revolut doesn't have to.
Yeah, so sorry to be that guy, right? But banks largely make money out of customer ignorance and customer lethargy. So, Florian, the fact that you're informed and you're doing something different, good for you. You can find something that's more competitive and better for you. And I think that speaks to the challenge that Cal raised, right? Which is, are they likely to wholesale move all their customers onto a much cheaper way to pay and cheaper way to manage FX? Probably not. What they're probably going to do is create a sidecar to the side. And for those that are price sensitive and want to shop around and are prepared to take on new things, then there's another vehicle for them to try and win that business. So they don't just lose their business to the likes of Revolut and others. They at least move it onto their sidecar app, and they can hold on to those customers and hold on to what they're doing and their behavior. So I think I think that would be the way I would do it if I was in their shoes, when I've got a large customer base that mostly just pays the fees and takes the hit. I think the other thing is the value proposition is slightly different depending on who you are and what products you hold. So your example of your existing credit card and that being an expensive thing to use cross border. Yeah, I can understand that because it's probably a way that you get price discriminated. There would be a better product there, I'm sure. Somewhere would offer you a credit card that didn't have FX fees and so on and so forth. But you may just find that you don't get so many benefits by using it. Certainly the way I work, right? I have a prepaid card that I fund whenever I go abroad. I use it because it has very low fee. It has, no FX fees. It just uses the wholesale MasterCard rate for doing cross-border transactions. But my current bank doesn't offer that. So I just move money into the prepaid card and use that for my foreign transactions. But it's just, if I did use my credit card from my existing bank, yes, I'd pay fees, but I'd also get air miles. And so there's always a trade-off, I think, depending on what you care about